Welcome to another episode of Living a Full Life. I'm Dr. Enrico Dolcecore. This week, we're going to be talking about upper cervical chiropractic care and what it means and how it's helped millions of people resolve amazing ailments. Upper cervical means upper neck, and it's a very unique neurological position in the human body. The upper neck has two or three vertebrae that are stacked on top of one another called C1, C2, and C3. We've uniquely named the top vertebra in the spine that goes right underneath the skull and protects the brainstem as Atlas. Atlas comes from Greek mythology. He's the guy holding the world on his shoulders. And literally, this 1 ounce bone holds the entire central nervous system on its shoulders. It's an amazing area. The bone below at C2 is called axis, axis meaning for rotation, kind of like the axis rotation of the earth, how it spins around its axis at all times. It's the same thing there. The axis holds and stabilizes the spine and the skull specifically in its place so it doesn't spin around like an owl. Because of something very unique that runs in there, the spinal cord and more importantly, the brainstem. It's an extension of the brain. The entire spinal cord is an extension of the brain. It's the superhighway fiber optic cable that connects the brain to the body, and it's called the central nervous system. But uniquely at that brainstem is the control center for all primitive functions from sleep, hunger, mood, everything that is automatic that you don't think about is relayed right there and transported to the body and back and forth to the brain. It's an amazing area. So it's really important that this area stays clear of any type of interference. We don't want decreased blood flow to the area. We don't want decreased cerebral spinal fluid in the area. We, of course, don't want any impingement in the area. We want this place to be very clear so it can do its job. And what ends up happening with stresses through our life, both physical, chemical, emotional, mental stresses, we can get a lot of rotation and misalignment in the upper neck, especially physical. Everyone that comes into our office always tries to figure out why they may have had a misalignment in their neck. After we find it, we tell them, hey, your upper neck's misaligned. We're going to do some adjusting. They're like, hey, what can I do or what should I not do that throws this off? So we get a direct referral because of physical. So sports injuries, whiplash, falling off a ladder, yard injuries, trampoline, gymnastics, all these whipping around, going to the hairdresser, having your head back for 45 minutes, getting your hair washed and cut. These little things, we always think about the physical, sleeping the wrong way, stacking the pillows, sleeping in a hotel, having the wrong pillows. So people always have a lot of ideas of the physical reasons why their neck may be thrown off. So we think it's physical. But what I found over my career is the chemical and the emotional stresses play a bigger role in throwing this area off because it's kind of like the circuit breaker to the nervous system. Once we overload it with too much stress, whether it's physical, chemical, emotional, the circuit breaker trips and we go into what's called a holding pattern or a protecting pattern to protect the central nervous system. It's just a defense mechanism to protect it, kind of like how a snake will coil up to protect itself or hide. The same thing happens with the central nervous system. So what we look at as chiropractors in this area is we have to measure the function of this area. So we use neurology to function this. We can use eye testing, motor testing, reflexes, thermography, heart rate variability, glomerular filtration rate of the kidneys. We can test a whole bunch of things from blood work to external. We try and keep it really simple with the testing for patients. And then we use diagnostic imaging. So we'll use x-rays, motion x-rays, and cone beam CT. We've installed a CT in our office to even look even deeper and more detailed into the area. Once we find the misalignment, whichever way it goes, it can so many different combinations of misalignments, then a unique adjustment is given to this area. There's no twisting, cracking, or popping because of many different things that happen in the upper neck. The articulation between the skull and C1 has no disc. The rest of our spine has discs. So between C2 and C3, C3 and C4, C4 and C5, C5 and C6, and all the way down the spine, T1 and T2, L1 and L2, L5 and the sacrum, all the way down the spine, we have what's called discs, spinal discs that are cartilaginous material filled with some hydration, and they keep a space between the vertebra, between the bones, kind of acting like a joint and a shock absorber. So what but between C1 and C2 there is no disc, and between the skull and C1 there is no disc. So there's no articulation buffer between those two. So they're designed to slide on one another and translate as we turn our head, rotate. So it has a very unique motion. As soon as we bend or turn our head, Atlas shifts into the skull and actually closes the joint. And that's how we stop from our head going past too far or our ear not going too far past our shoulder. And this is all mechanical, just like how your knee's not supposed to hyperextend or your elbow's not supposed to hyperextend. We have these systems in place to hold us articulations in place as well. So there's unique adjustments, and typically what ends up happening is you got to lie down the person on their side and keep them in a neutral position, and then use either an instrument or by hand slide into C1 or C2 and perform the unique adjustment based off the x-rays and findings. So very cool way to do this. And once the alignment is put back into place, people instantaneously, same day, notice something, some changes. So we've seen things as little as anxiety, not that it's a little symptom, it's a huge symptom, but little things as anxiety or not feeling right or brain fog, all the way up to loss of motor function where people are trembling, have a tremor, cannot use their legs properly. They're on a cane. They're not walking properly. They come in with some type of diagnoses that are not correlated to major diseases. Like they may come in with MS symptoms and not have MS, vertigo symptoms and been checked, have brain scans, CT scans, have had neck scans, have been to neurologists, have seen everything. There's no pathology. There is no brain lesions. There is no damage. There's nothing medically diagnosable through that. And what we see in our office is that's great that all those scans are great. And then we do the upper cervical scans and they have a misalignment. We restore the misalignment, remove the subluxation, and people start to restore quite quickly, which is just absolutely amazing. And if I were to sit here and talk about all the ailments that upper cervical has helped over just my short career, 17 years, we'll be here all day. I thought it was something always related. I always tell people, you have migraines, headaches, vertigo, or dizziness, tinnitus, vestibular migraines, anything related to the head, you should get your upper neck checked. But I've had people who have had sciatica down the leg, have been to PTs, neurologists, other chiropractors, have x-rays of their low back, get adjusted, and still have sciatica. And I'm like, let's take a look at your neck just to make sure everything's okay up there too. And they have massive misalignments up there. We adjust those. Their sciatica goes away immediately, mainly because they've done the work before. And then all they were missing the piece to that. Hence why we do that in our office. So if you've been dealing with anything chronic, long-term, and have looked down different avenues, and you're like, what is this upper cervical thing? Definitely look into upper cervical. Upper cervical is I call it a low barrier healthcare offer to get into because chiropractors are accessible. You can get same week appointments, and the barrier to get in is low economically. I mean, chiropractors charge a couple $100 compared to going to specialists or hospitals where they charge thousands of dollars. So economically, I tell people it's not that chiropractic is cheaper, it's that chiropractic is a lower barrier offer to get into. So easily accessible for most of the population to get into. Totally worth checking it out and doing an assessment to even see if you have upper cervical misalignments. And then getting those corrected is easy peasy, as we call it in our industry, because the adjustments are just so tailored and so custom to you. And there's many different techniques on chiropractic. And we can talk about that. The techniques vary. So if you start getting into upper cervical research, you're going to see things where people use, the chiropractors use their hands or maybe use an instrument or a tool. And they're all based on different ideas. One is that by hand is how it always used to be done. 90 years ago is how they all started with toggle recoil. They were using their hands, hole-in-one technique. The Blair technique is done by hand. Nuka is done by hand. Then you get into stylus type adjustments or by tool, where AO, orthospondology, orthogonal, all of these other type of upper cervical techniques that they're called, they use tools or instruments to try and take away human error. There's a belief that if we use an instrument, we may take away the human error between practitioners. So people are always like, well, is there truly human error? if you see the same doctor all the time, you'll get the same adjustment all the time. But if you're moving around seeing different doctors, then one person may have a lighter force, one might have a more firm hand, one edit changes it so that then they have a tool that gives out the same force on every adjustment. So supposed to eliminate human error. So these are just little theories, but the beauty of this upper cervical is that everyone is assessing, analyzing, locating, detecting for these misalignments, these subluxations, and then correcting them. That is just so cool. So I highly recommend upper cervical chiropractic. I'm a big Blair fan and Nuka fan just because those are the things that I've been taught in. So if you're in the Tampa area looking for a full upper cervical chiropractor, come check us out at Full Life Chiropractic. So that's a great opportunity there. Or email us at info@fulllifetampa.com. Check out or email us, and wherever you live, anywhere in Canada or the US, we will find a local chiropractor for you that does it. Or go to Upper Cervical Chiropractor near me. Check that out, and you'll see different directories based on techniques as well. So a very important area of the human nervous system is in that upper neck with the brainstem, and its control center is absolutely spectacular in what it does. So we focus on it because if that's not clear, other things may not be clear. So it's a great way to just clear that up and then work your way down. We always start from above down in chiropractic. So we clear C1 and then we work our way down. In our office, we use a mix of techniques to make sure that the entire spine gets its attention. We even do sports injury stuff. So we'll adjust any joint in the body. I've adjust fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, knees, ankles, hips. Every joint can be manipulated if there's misalignment in it, for sure. And it always helps. So that is an upper cervical definition of what the technique actually does. Reach out to us at fulllifetampa.com if you have any questions. And if you want to try upper cervical, typically what it looks like when you come in is there's paperwork, there's an examination. The neurological tests that we do are reflex based and neuro based. Then there are specific testing that are done for the misalignment. So you don't have to get x-rayed every single visit. That's what I first thought when I first became a doctor. I'm like, okay, I found the misalignment on x-ray. I'm going to correct it. Next time the patient comes in, do I have to re-x-ray them? So we may do a post in Nuka. I remember taking an x-ray, adjusting the patient, letting them rest for 20 minutes, going back to the x-ray room, or on their next visit, going back to the x-ray room and x-raying them post-visit or post-adjustment, making sure that the correction we gave them made a change in their alignment. So there would be objective data to show that. And then that was it. We confirmed the misalignment. We confirmed that that's the way this patient goes out. It's their primary misalignment. And then they leave. And then we had neuro checks based on reflexes with their legs, where we would check leg length. We would make them turn their head left and right. We would check the reflexes and see if they were out or holding that day. Again, the brainstem controls everything, especially coordination and balance. So a lot of the reflexes are in the legs and ankles. That's where all the receptors are when you stand and walk. And if you were to blink or close your eyes as you walk, you wouldn't fall over because those receptors know that you're standing in space. So they know to hold your body up in space. That's what the central nervous system's always doing. Another cool fact is you may have stumbled across we only use 10% of our brain. It's not true. We use 100% of our brain 100% of the time. It's always functioning, doing things. We cognitively use 10% of our brain's capability. So what it's saying is that we use 10% of the potential of our brain in our cognitive lobe because of the potential that we could possibly do with it. So the other 90% of your brain's used all the time. Is actually using to keep you upright every moment of every day. Keeps you breathing. It keeps you moving. It keeps you upright so you don't fall. That's what 90% of your brain's doing, is spatial recognition and spatial detection in the universe or on Earth. That's what it's doing all the time. It's just sensing the environment and protecting you. So you're ready to jump away or run away or go to sleep, wherever it may be. It's digesting food. It's doing all the other things. We use 10% of our cognitive function as humans with an unlimited potential there. That's where that stat is. So we measure 100% of your nervous system with our testing, thermography, heart rate variability, static electromyography. And these tests are used all the time. We love the thermography pre and post every single visit. It shows us the pattern. And that is a quick window of upper cervical care. and how maybe this is something that may help you. Share this podcast with anyone, anywhere, that gives them a little insight about upper cervical and hopefully changes their life one way or another. And of course, visit our website and follow us on YouTube and see all the cool testimonials of some of the conditions that we've helped, from trigeminal neuralgia, sciatica, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, vestibular migraines, vertigo, seizures. And the list just goes on and on and on about all the little things that um, a misalignment in the upper neck can actually cause a lot of frequency issues that leads down the wrong path. So it's a missed technique. And people always ask me, why isn't this in medicine? Why don't they look at this? Well, let us know if you have any questions and reach out. Have a great week.